What I'm about to show you has been described by some professional photographers as nothing less than incredible, stupendous, and downright wonderful. Yes, I'm about to demonstrate Dr. Brown's image processor. What is Dr. Brown's image processor? It is a script, a JavaScript, that will work within Adobe Photoshop CS. It will allow you to work with Photoshop images, JPEG images, camera raw images, and TIFF images. It will allow you to convert a large number of images quickly into a destination folder, process them without having to create an action. That's right, I'll repeat that. I said without having to create an action and then running a batch process. That can be a little bit difficult, but today with Dr. Brown's image processor, we can process these easily and quickly. Now, where does Dr. Brown's image processor live? Going here to my desktop, I will show you the path to follow to find it and to where to place it. For those of you who want to get moving and stop listening to this movie and just start using it, first you will find it on the same CD that contains this very movie that you are watching. Next, you will take the script called Dr. Brown's image processor, as you see here. You will place it into the Photoshop CS folder, within the presets folder, within the scripts folder. You will drop it in there. Of course, Adobe Photoshop is not running at the same time you are moving this file. Once the file is placed within the scripts folder, then start Photoshop and it will become available from the file menu down to scripts. Now, for those of you who want to continue listening to my presentation and learn the secrets to using Dr. Brown's image processor, then continue listening. For those of you who want to get going on your own, stop the movie. So here we are back in Photoshop. Our first project today is to convert some camera raw images into Photoshop images, JPEG images, and TIFF images. I'm going to simply click on this camera raw images folder, drag it up here to the options bar, and drop it on this icon, Toggle File Browser. We then instantly go to that folder, and it is displayed in the file browser. That was pretty cool. Now, workflow. Think workflow. We have a bunch of images, and we want to process them quickly. The first thing we need to do is to apply some camera raw settings to these images. I'm going to click here on this first image of all of these images taken by Greg Gorman. Now this image has a color card in it. That's going to assist us in color correcting this image with the camera raw dialog sliders. I'm going to double click on this image. Now I have, of course, applied settings to this image previously, but I want to make a minor adjustment here to the exposure. And now I want to update these adjustments to this image. I merely hold down my Option or Alt key. Then the OK button changes to an Update button. I've simply and easily updated that first image. Now, I would like to then apply those settings across multiple images. Yes, it's true, you can do it by simply holding down the Shift key, selecting the last image here in the same set of images photographed with the same lighting, then moving over here to Automate, found in the File Browser window, and down to Apply Camera Raw Settings. As you can see here, under the Settings category, it says First Selected Image. That's the image we're going to pull the settings from and apply them across all the others. I simply select Update, and it now has updated all of these with the same settings that we applied to the first image. We would then work through our other lighting conditions. For example, in this situation, we have a different lighting. We would open this image, apply different settings, then of course select all of the images in that set of images with that same lighting, and of course apply the camera raw settings across all of those images as we did before. Once you have applied all these settings to all of the images, you're now ready to process them. Okay, you now have two choices. You can either process these images with an action that is run through a batch process, or you can use Dr. Brown's image processor. Of course, Dr. Brown's image processor does not require an action, nor does it require a degree in physics from Yale University. But keep in mind, an action can do far more sophisticated things than Dr. Brown's image processor, yet it's a little complex. As we recall, you first create an action, then you move up to the Automate menu, run a batch here, fill in this form, of course after you've finished your degree in nuclear physics, then you process your images. But I'm going to select Cancel and open up my Dr. Brown's image processing script. But wait, before we do that, I would like to reduce the number of images in this set that I'm going to process. As you can see here, there's a small flag on the edge of this image. To flag an image, you simply select it, move up here to the top of the file browser, and turn the flag on or off. I can now display only those images which are flagged. I select here, toggle down to Flagged Files. This is a great way then to go through your images quickly, flag them, and then just display the images that you've selected from a particular photo shoot. So we're now ready to start processing. We're going to go up here to File, and down to Scripts, and over to Dr. Brown's Image Processor. So here we are. We finally made it to Dr. Brown's Image Processor. Let's go through a step-by-step process of analyzing how we can use this. Let's start with the source here at the top. Let's identify the source of the files that we're going to process. I can click on this Browse button and then identify our source as the camera raw images. I'm going to click Choose. So that was easy. Now I want to determine the destination. Where do we want these images to go? Clicking on Browse again, here next to Destination, let's put those in the Processed Images folder. Like that. Now notice that I can also process flagged images only. Why, that would be the first thing we're going to do. Since I've identified 3 flagged images prior to opening up this dialog, I'm going to check that box. Notice that the source destination has switched to Flagged Images from File Browser. How convenient. Take special note. You will only be able to check this box to process flagged images only if you have some flagged images in your current file browser. If you do not have flagged images, this item will remain grayed out and you will not be able to select it. I just thought you should know that. Now, in this project, we want to create JPEG images, Photoshop images, and TIFF images. We'd like to export all 3 flavors. I would like to adjust the quality a little bit higher to 8. I'll enter that in now. I'm going to maximize compatibility. I'm going to compress with LZW compression my TIFF files, and of course I always like to include my ICC profile information. But wait, there's even more. Check this out. I can decide to resize the individual file types separately. That's right, I'll repeat that. I can resize each different file type at a different fit image setting. In this case, I've selected to resize the JPEG. I've also decided to resize the TIFF. But I am not going to resize the PSD Photoshop files for this project. However, if I wanted to, I could. Now, I'm going to select here on Resize JPEG again, then move down here to the Fit Image Settings for JPEG. In this case, they're fairly small for the web, so I'm going to put in 500 pixels for the width, select the Tab key to move over to the height, and put in 500 again. We of course know that when using Fit Image, we're going to make horizontals and verticals fit within this 500 by 500 pixel imaginary square. Got that? Now I simply click over here on Resize TIFF, and I can enter in the values for my TIFF. I'm going to enter in 1000 pixels by 1000 pixels, again using my tab key to move from one box to the next. I'm entering in a little bit larger size for the TIFF images because my client has requested this particular size. Then, down here in the copyright information area, I'm going to enter in the copyright information for Greg Gorman Photography. This copyright information will travel with every image that is processed using Dr. Brown's image processor and will be part of the metadata for that particular image or images. Now we're ready to start the processing. We've chosen to process flagged images only. We know where the destination is, and we've selected all the file types and the resizing functions for each of those types. I merely select Run and go to lunch. Then it will go through and process these one by one. Of course, it is using the applied camera raw settings that we applied to each image earlier during the processing of these images. Okay, the processing of these three images is complete. I'm going to move over here in my file browser and toggle down under the processed images. Notice that three new folders have appeared here: JPEG, PSD, and TIFF. These were generated automatically by Dr. Brown's image processor. When we check that box in the image processor, in the process of creating these, it creates this folder. If I click on one of these folders, you can see the three processed images in each of these folders. Now let's toggle this back up and let's try something else. I'm going to go back to my camera raw images that we started with. I'm going to toggle here to view the flagged files only. Now in this next project, I want three files from the same photo shoot. I'm going to target these three images and then select the flag here at the top to turn those off. Then going back to all of my images, I want to select three images here at the top. This image, this one, and this one. Let's flag those and then display the flagged images only, just like this. So now let's take a look at something that's just a little bit different. Going back up to the File menu, down to Scripts, and over to Dr. Brown's image processor one more time. Now, here we are in the processor dialog. You will note, however, that the defaults are no longer blank. They have now retained the last settings that we used the last time we selected Run. Why isn't that nice? Now back to our movie. As you recall, we went through and we assigned and browsed for a source for our images, and we can process images directly from a source folder, or as we did in our last exercise, we processed images that were flagged in the file browser. But what's this down here? Open first image to apply settings. This is important, and it has a lot of power and capabilities you need to know about. I'm going to check that box. Then moving over here, I'm going to run this script. So here we are in the Open dialog. What we need to do next is to identify an image that will be used to adjust the camera raw settings. In this case, I'm going to select this top image because it has the color card. Then I select Open. The next thing that will happen is that the camera raw dialog will appear. Okay, I now can go through the camera raw dialog and make any number of adjustments to any of these controls, and these adjustments will be applied to all of the images that are being processed with Dr. Brown's image processor. For example, I can change the depth down here to 16 bits per channel. This is something I cannot do directly in Dr. Brown's image processor. Another thing, and a great super user tip and technique, I can adjust the resolution. In this case, I'm adjusting it to 300 pixels per inch, thus making my images smaller, but of course maintaining the resolution overall. I'm not throwing away any pixels, I'm merely making the existing pixels display smaller within a defined space. Thus, it will help me with programs like Adobe InDesign. I often find that cameras will sometimes give me images that are much too large. By adjusting the resolution here, I can then adjust all of the images that are being processed so they are nice and small when they first appear into a program like Adobe InDesign. A nice tip and technique to remember. Again, that's something you cannot adjust directly in the script itself. I could of course go through here and adjust temperature, tint, exposure, and any of these adjustments until I like it. Then by clicking OK, it's going to of course use these settings to process all of the images. I'm now going to click OK and process these 3 images with these settings. Keep in mind, if I had previously set or applied any camera raw settings to any of the other images, they will maintain their settings that you created earlier and only use these settings temporarily. Now I'm going to click OK. So these 3 images have been processed. I have another simple example of how to use this same technique but with JPEG images. I'm going to click on this folder to display some JPEG images directly from the camera. These have never been processed before and they're in the sRGB color space. Now watch this. I'm going to go up here and select Display Flagged Files from the pop-out menu in the file browser. I want to process these 3 images that have been flagged. Again, we go back to File, Script, and over to our image processor. Now this time, we're going to leave the settings exactly as they are. We're going to open the first image to apply settings, but we're not going to open a camera raw image. This time, we're going to open a JPEG image. And let's see what happens. I'm going to select Run. As you can see, once again, we have the open dialog box. It wants us to identify one of the images to be used to process all the others. In this case, we want to use a JPEG image, and let's select this first image here. What I want to show you is that this embedded profile mismatch dialog will appear. The great thing about this is that it allows us to decide whether we want to convert these images into our working space, which in this case is Adobe RGB, or do we want to leave them in the native camera space, which was sRGB. In most cases, I like to convert my images to my native working space, so I get the ability to select this. By clicking OK, it will now go through and process all the other images in this folder using the Convert to Working Space profile. This is a great technique to go through and convert these images without the tedious process of converting them one by one. The process of converting these will be automatic if you select the folder, and it will use the default settings found under your color settings for the conversion process. But if you use this technique through Dr. Brown's image processor, you get to choose which color space they go into. So these 3 images have now been processed. You have just witnessed some incredible creative ways to use Dr. Brown's image processor. In closing, I'd like to show you one more interesting thing you should know. Over here in the file browser, I'm going to toggle down on Processed Images to reveal the JPEG images that we've been processing. By clicking on this folder, I'll display the images we've created during this demo. As you can see, I've processed this topmost image 3 different times. However, I did not write over the original. I merely created a second copy, a third copy, and on each time I process the image. This is a great way to, for example, export different exposures from Camera Raw and say combine them together. So there you have it. You've just witnessed the incredible introduction of Dr. Brown's image processor. Give it a try and see if it saves time and money for you.